Night makes war honest. No banners, no speeches, only shapes, bearings, and guesses. In the Solomons, the ocean swallows sound. A black swell rolls. A destroyer leans, then rights itself. Lookouts blink salt and try to decide whether that darker dark off the port bow is a squall or a ship. Somewhere beyond sight, a line of Japanese tubes tilts down. The first clue isn't a white streak on the water. There is no streak. That's the point. A 24-inch oxygen torpedo, 610 mm, running up to 1,048 knots for 20,000 yards, with nearly 1,000 OLB of explosive, moves without bubbles. It writes no warning line. Doctrine meets hardware in the dark. For years, the Imperial Japanese Navy practiced night fighting as a craft. Drills with no lights, torpedo officers learning to read silhouettes and aim not at ships, but at where time will put them. Captains trust the math, of course, and speed more than any last-second impulse. When the order comes, open outer doors. It isn't a gamble. It's choreography. On an American cruiser, the bridge smells like coffee and sweat. Early radar sweeps. The sea throws back lies. A petty officer calls a contact. An officer corrects the bearing. A captain weighs a dozen maybes. They are hunting guns. The enemy is hunting angles. Out there, a Japanese destroyer turns slightly to unmask all its tubes. The salvo is not a scatter. It is a fan with intent, laid to cut the path of ships that haven't arrived at the crossing yet. Every torpedo runs its own private war. Steady, invisible, patient. The American column keeps its speed because speed feels like safety. Lookouts see nothing new. No bright V of bubbles. No glittering wake to draw a line to death. The first real signal arrives as a tremor through deck plates. A single, deep thud at the keel that multiples into blast and fire. Sheets of water slam the superstructure. Lights fail. The ship lurches the way a man does when his legs forget the ground is there. No one cheers on the Japanese destroyer. They are already turning away, resetting angles, counting seconds in their heads. Night is a clock you can learn to read if you practice long enough, and they have practiced for years. American sailors will call it unfair, then uncanny, then something else, a mystery with math under it. In weeks, this silence will have a name: Savo Island. New words follow: spread, evasion turn, zigs by the clock, and new habits, like never assuming the ocean between you and a shadow is empty. The myth will be that the torpedoes were magic. The truth is harsher and more useful. A weapon that hit its approach, carried a blow that broke backs, and crews trained to fire at the future. In the dark, that felt like sorcery. One more truth. Pure oxygen is a promise and a threat. One leak can turn your own deck into a fuse. This is how the story begins. Not with a battle won or lost, but with a shape you cannot see drawing a straight line to a place your ship will be. Next, we step inside the cylinder. Valves, balance, and the fear that lived on Japanese decks. The long lance was a blade. Japan spent years learning to swing it in the dark. Before the war, the Imperial Japanese Navy treated night combat like a separate religion. Destroyer squadrons drilled under blacked-out decks. No running lights, no talk, only hand signals and stopwatch clicks. Lookouts learned silhouettes by heart. Torpedo officers solved triangles in their sleep. Target speed, bearing rate, advance, and transfer. Aim not at ships, but at where time will put them. A light cruiser, Jinsu or Sendai, led the striking line of destroyers. Doctrine set the stage. Decoy gunfire, lead ships through brief salvos to fix the enemy's attention and course. Fan with intent, tubes unmasked by a few degrees, laddered spreads laid across the enemy's future track. not his hulls. Crossing time. Captains judged the second a column would hit the fan, then turned away clean, never lingering for credit. Everything served the torpedo. And this torpedo was different. Type 93, 610mm, could run 20,000 yards at 48 knots, or 30-40 km at lower speed, with a warhead near 1,000 OB on pure oxygen, leaving no bubble wake to betray it. There was a price. Oxygen charging was an every watch ritual. Bleed lines, test valves, sniff vents. One leak near hot metal could turn the rack into a fuse. Crews carried that fear like a second life jacket and practiced anyway. Across the ocean, American night fighting still trusted searchlights and gunfire. Blind the target, rake it, correct by splashes. Early radar helped some and lied often. True SG sets were scarce at first. Columns held 20-knot courses because order felt safer than improvisation. It was a daylight habit carried into midnight. The difference showed in inches. A Japanese destroyer eased 5 degrees to present all tubes. An American column didn't notice. 5 degrees is nothing on a black horizon. Japanese torpedoes left no bright V of bubbles. The first honest signal was a hull shutter and the sudden, mean tilt of a deck. Night doctrine did not promise victory by itself. It promised first cut. It promised that when two forces met without sun, one would already be inside the other's decision loop, firing at a future the enemy hadn't considered. In weeks, that signature will write itself at Savo Island, 9 August 1942. Not because of magic, but because angles plus oxygen plus discipline met a column that kept its line. The ocean at midnight belonged to the side that trusted a clock more than a spotlight. Next, we opened the weapon. Valves, oxygen flasks, monster range, and the quiet terror of carrying a torpedo that could also light your own shadow on fire. Open the cylinder. It's 24 inches wide, 610mm, bigger than anything the Americans fire. Length, 9.6 min. Weight, 2.7 t. Up front sits a warhead of 490 kilos of high explosive. Behind it, the machine that makes the ocean lie. Not air. Oxygen. A wet heater burns kerosene, plus pure O2. No nitrogen means far less exhaust volume, so almost no bubble wake. The crew warms the motor on compressed air. A lever clicks. The torpedo switches to oxygen. A sharp hiss, a cleaner burn. The wake goes invisible. Numbers, because numbers matter. 48-50 knots for Bowery 18 to a 20 kilometer, a sprint with teeth. 36-38 knots for 30-40 kilometers. Reach that turns outside gunnery range into inside danger. Depth set, 4-6 mi to break backs below the armor belt. Gyro holds course. The pistol is contact, simple and mean. Everything inside fights for balance. Oxygen flasks must be ultra clean. Valves seat tight. Fuel lines stay dry. Any oil, grit, or spark turns efficiency into detonation. Charging is a ritual every watch. Bleed, test, smell, log. The sailors who do it carry a quiet superstition. Tap the wrench twice. Never rush the last gauge. Why it breaks ships the way it does. A 610mm body carries momentum. At attack speed, it slams low into keel and machinery spaces, where damage multiplies. Flooding, power loss, structural sag. One hit can cripple. Two can fold a hull. A fan can end a story before guns begin. Why it terrified its owners? The same oxygen that hides the wake feeds fire. A hot fragment, a stray spark near a charged rack, a bomb burst close aboard. Any of these can cook your own fish. After Midway, cruiser Makuma burned when bomb hits set off her Type 93 racks. Oxygen turned blast into a chain. On paper, it looks like an equation. Oxygen in, bubbles out. At sea, it feels like distance turned into certainty. You don't see it leave. You only meet it where you were going to be. This is the engine under the night doctrine. Next, Savo Island, 9 August 1942, when that certainty arrived at scale. 9 August 1942, after midnight. North of Guadalcanal, the water is ink and the sky is a lid. Allied cruisers guard the sea lanes. 2 groups circling slow figure eights. Picket destroyers drowsing at the edges. Transports sleep at anchor. Marines ashore think the ocean is a wall. It isn't. It's a door someone forgot to lock. From the northwest, a thin column ghosts in. Vice Admiral Gunichi Mikawa, with heavy cruisers Chokai, Flag, Aoba, Furutaka, Kinugasa, Kako, and light cruisers Tenryu and Yubari, plus 1 destroyer. No radios, no running lights, funnels breathing low. Every bridge whispering the same arithmetic. Bearing rate, column speed, time to crossing. On the Allied side, the watch is a patchwork. Some radars are warm, some cold, some staring into island clutter and painting ghosts. A destroyer logs a contact, then loses it in land return. Another sees a flicker and calls it lightning. Somewhere, a signalman squints and decides the sky is just tired. One ship does scream. The American destroyer USS Patterson flashes in radios. "Warning! Warning! Strange ships entering the harbor." It's brave. It's right. It's too late to break the line. 01:43. Mikawa gives the sea its order. The striking line fans out a few degrees to unmask torpedo tubes. Light cruisers act like scalpels. Torpedo officers set depth. 4-6 nm. Speeds for long reach. Fuses live. The words are quiet. Open outer doors. The salvo is not noise. It is geometry. A laddered fan is thrown across where the Allied cruiser columns will be in 1 to 2 minutes, not where they are now. Spreads designed to cut both the southern group and the northern group at about 9 to 12 QID of crossing range. Every Type 93 runs its own private war, steady and invisible. Mikawa's column leans through a gentle turn and keeps sliding forward like it was rehearsed, because it was. Flares blossom. Magnesium day hung under cloud. Searchlights snap white ribs across water and jungle. The first American guns answer, late, dazzled by their own glare. And for a heartbeat, it looks like a normal firefight. Then the ocean speaks. Row 1, 50, row 1, 56. A deep thud under HMAS Canberra, then another. Flooding, fire, command lines cut. USS Chicago takes a long lance in the bow. Steel peels like rind, and her forward battery goes dumb. North of them, the second Allied group tries to swing and runs straight into decisions already made for them a minute ago. USS Quincy takes torpedo and shells, listing and burning, still trying to lock a searchlight on the shape that gutted her. USS Vincennes and USS Astoria Trade bursts at silhouettes that slip between glare and smoke. Both are already fighting fires and casualties before their second full salvo is even out. From the Japanese line, the discipline is surgical. Short, savage bursts of gunfire to finish the ones the torpedoes have unmanned. Tenryu's shutters wink. Chokai's forward turrets bark, then go silent again so the column doesn't blind its own night vision. No one chases wrecks. No one hangs around for credit. Doctrine says, turn away clean. They obey the clock they brought. Allied spotters keep calling what is. The long lance was aimed at what will be. One American radar operator swears at sea clutter. A captain orders a searchlight, and by doing it, draws a perfect white arrow straight back to his own bridge. Tracers follow that arrow in. In the transport anchorage, men wake to a horizon that blinks like a foundry. On the waterline of Astoria, fire races fore and aft as damage control teams try to fight flame and flooding at the same time. Quincy's bridge takes a direct hit. Orders die halfway down the ladder. Vincennes rolls hard, tries to make smoke, and finds smoke already made for her by ruptured fuel. Canberra lies mortally hurt, engines dead, guns mute, crew still on stations. This takes minutes, just minutes. Mikawa looks ahead and sees the silhouettes of the American transports, soft targets, full of Marines' food, ammunition, fuel. He could push in and finish the landings in one night. He doesn't. Ammo is low. His formation is stretched. Dawn is a few hours away. He does not know where the American carriers are. He decides not to find out the hard way. He turns the column back the way it came. Fast, silent, exactly as drilled. By dawn, the ledger is written. HMAS Canberra, USS Astoria, USS Quincy, USS Vincennes, gone. USS Chicago, torpedoed, but afloat. 2 destroyers, hurt and converted, overnight, into believers. This channel gets a new name, Iron Bottom Sound, for how many ships it will keep. And one more line in that ledger. On the way home, cruiser Kako will be caught and sunk by the American submarine USS S-44. Night let Mikawa in. Daylight charges interest. American doctrine changes here. Hard. Searchlights fix your course. Torpedo water is never clear. You zig by the clock, not by pride. Radar is a tool, not a guarantee. Someone in the room now always asks, where will we be when their fan arrives? There was no magic. It was angles, plus oxygen, plus discipline, hitting a formation that kept its line. Savo Island is not the end. It's proof. Next, Tassafaronga. When the numbers say the Americans should win, and a smaller Japanese force still cuts a bigger column open in the dark. 30 November 1942, close to midnight. The channel off Guadalcanal breathes a slow, dark swell. An American cruiser force waits crosswise in the lane, radar up, guns trained, a net stretched across the path of a Tokyo Express. On paper, the numbers say, this one goes our way. From the northwest come the freighters that aren't freighters. Japanese destroyers stacked with fuel drums and rice, commanded by Raizo Tanaka. Fast, disciplined, night-drilled. One of them, Takanami, runs a little wide as a picket, watching the black. American radar finds her. Bearings settle. Orders tighten. Rear Admiral Carlton H. Wright has 5 cruisers. Minneapolis, Flag, New Orleans, Pensacola, Northampton, Honolulu, and a screen of destroyers. He decides to hit first. Searchlights crack open the night. Heavy guns speak. Takanami is caught and hammered. She will not live till dawn. It looks like a clean trap. It isn't. Because the long lances are already in the water. Back up a minute. When the American lights bloomed, Tanaka's line did not stop to argue. Tubes already unmasked, angles remembered, they threw fans with intent. Long-range Type 93 spreads cut across the future path of the American column. Then, by doctrine, they turned away clean, hauling their supply drums and their smoke into the night. The American cruisers do what cruisers do. They hold formation. They keep speed. They keep shooting at shapes that vanish between gun flashes and smoke. Radar plots are good, then muddy, then good again. Sea clutter and island echoes arguing on the scope. On the bridges, officers feel the relief of action. The net is closed. The enemy is running. The ocean disagrees. A single deep impact hammers Minneapolis forward. Bow shattered, fires up, power staggering. And before damage control can finish its first sentence, New Orleans takes a long lance that shears her bow clean off. Steel, anchor, and everything forward of Turret 2 are gone in a second. What's left of the ship shoulders through her own floating bow. Pensacola turns to avoid the wreckage and shows a perfect broadside to a torpedo that has been patient the whole time. The hit tears into her starboard side, fuel and fire making a black river under orange light. Northampton, still hunting with guns, catches two. One abaft the engine rooms, one near the stern. She tries to live on pumps and courage. She won't make morning. Only Honolulu dances clear, hit in the superstructure by shell fire, but her belly spared. The timeline is cruel because it was decided before the first American salvo. Tanaka's destroyers fired at where time would put the line, not at where the searchlight said it was. The net closed after the fish had already swum through. On the Japanese decks, there is no celebration. Takanami burns and dies a few miles off, crew fighting to the end. The rest of the line keeps its clock. Smoke, turn, speed, gone. Drums intended for Guadalcanal roll in their wakes, some to be found by Marines in the morning. American sailors learn a fresh rule by fire. Radar plus searchlights is not immunity. The scope can tell you where, not when. A column that holds a nice, honest course is a gift to a torpedo that writes in minutes and angles. You shoot. The ocean answers from under your bow. Before dawn, the ledger is written. Northampton, lost. Minneapolis, New Orleans, Pensacola, wrecked but saved, each carried home by genius damage control and stubborn steel. Honolulu, bruised and angry, still fighting. Takanami, gone. Tanaka's other boats slip away. Tassafaronga does not say the long lance is magic. It says doctrine plus oxygen, plus discipline can cut a bigger force if that force fights the last minute it understands. After this night, American captains will tighten SG radar tactics, learn counter-torpedo turns by the clock, and put new respect on the words torpedo water. The blade still bites. The lesson is getting sharper. Next, counters arrive. The slow grind back. Better radar, better formations, and why Japan's oxygen edge began to erode with every mile and month. The ocean didn't get safer. We got smarter. After Savo and Tassafaronga, American bridges stopped treating night as bad daylight. A new room appears behind the pilot house, the CIC, the Combat Information Center, a dark hive of grease pencils and headphones. SG surface radar paints ships at 10+ miles. The plotter calls bearing, range, course, speed. The captain fights the picture, not the guess. Doctrine flips. No searchlights. Light is a confession. Zig by the clock. Columns keep a timed weave, so a torpedo fan finds empty water. Comb the tracks. When someone yells, "Fish in the water," you turn toward the line, not away. Cross the T of the torpedo and let it slide down your length. Split rolls. Destroyers make the cut. Cruisers hold fire until the clock says kill. Silent ambush. Torpedoes first, guns only after the hits. Radios get shorter. Orders get simpler. Darken ship. Maintain weave. Hold your fire. The point isn't to look brave. It's to be unseen and correct. The hardware grows a backbone for the plan. SG radar feeds Mk-37 directors with range and bearing. Plots stay continuous. Contacts don't vanish when smoke lies. Torpedo settings are briefed before the turn. Depth, speed, spread. So the launch is muscle memory, not a debate. On some bridges, a grease pencil note sits above the voice tubes. Fire. Turn away clean. Then the tests come. Vela Gulf, 6-7 August 1943. A Japanese destroyer run slips down the slot with drums of fuel for Guadalcanal. This time, the Americans are waiting silent, spread in the dark off the track, not across it. Radar picks them up early. A U.S. destroyer group glides across the Japanese future and looses a tight fan. No flares, no searchlights. Explosions answer first. Guns speak only to finish what the fish unmanned. 3 enemy destroyers go down inside minutes. The lesson that hurt at Tassafaronga now cuts the other way. Angles, plus silence, plus timing. Between actions, the culture changes. Captains stop chasing wrecks. They stop taking victory laps on the radio. The CIC learns to argue the picture, to say, that's clutter, or that's land return, and not let a ghost bend a column. The night loses its panic and keeps its risk. Cape St. George, 25 November 1943. A clean, cold test. 5 Japanese destroyers head to cover a withdrawal. Arleigh Burke's Desron, 23 tracks them on SG, like ants on a pane of glass. No searchlights. 2 U.S. divisions time a pincer under radar control. 1st Division fires torpedoes. 2nd holds fire to keep surprise. Onami dies fast. Makanami follows. Ugiri tries to run and is cut down by gunfire. American losses? None. It isn't luck. It's a room full of clocks and a bridge that listens. Meanwhile, the long lance begins to lose its edge. Not its bite, its context. Crews are thinner. Fuel is tighter. Oxygen torpedo upkeep on worn hulls becomes a gamble some skippers won't take. The same chemistry that made the wake vanish still feeds fire when bombs walk a deck. More than one Japanese ship will die not from a hit, but from her own racks cooking off. On our side, other gears start to mesh. Black Cat PBYs mark routes at night. PT boats force destroyers to weave and waste time. Submarines choke approaches that used to feel private. And within the gun crews, a quiet revolution. Radar-directed fire that starts on target instead of searching for it. Counters don't erase the long lance. They strip its assumptions. A torpedo fan still kills if a column holds a proud, honest line. But a column that weaves on the minute, that turns toward the threat, that fires first from the dark with radar to steer its hands, makes night fight different math. By late 43, the scoreboard has changed shape. The Japanese still know the craft, but the clock is no longer theirs alone. The ocean at midnight is contested ground, and the side that sets the geometry tends to survive it. Next, turning the tide. Why the edge keeps sliding. Attrition, fuel, training pipelines, and a Pacific that grows bigger for one navy and smaller for the other. Edges don't vanish. They erode. By early 1943, the long lance is still a blade, but the hands that swing it are thinner. Veteran night officers lost in the Solomons weren't just names. Many were Yokosuka Torpedo School graduates, hard to replace fast. New crews arrive short-trained, learning under fire. Fuel is the quiet killer. Tankers die on ocean roads. Sorties shrink to what the bunkers allow. Oxygen torpedo upkeep on tired destroyers becomes a dice roll. Seals seep, flasks foul, racks get touchy with age and blast. A weapon that demanded ritual now meets a schedule that can't afford it. One hot fragment can still cook your own racks. Across the line, the picture hardens. CIC is no longer a novelty. It's standard. By mid-43, SG radar sits on most destroyers in the slot. Captains speak in bearing range course speed, not guesses. Doctrine flips to clocks, not glory. Weave on the minute. Torpedoes first, turn away clean. The ledger tilts in actions that rhyme. Kula Gulf, 6 Joule 43. USS Helena dies to 3 Type 93 hits, a last perfect fan. But the counterpunch lands. Jinsu goes under to radar-directed guns, and the Express bleeds speed it can't spare. Kolombangara, 13 Joule. Gwin is sunk. Honolulu and St. Louis are torpedoed, yet complete the mission. Drums don't reach hungry troops. Empress Augusta Bay, 2 Nav. Merrill fights the picture, not the panic. Torpedoes first from the dark, guns to finish. Sendai goes under, Hatsukaze lost. Cape St. George, 25 Nav. Arleigh Burke splits his force. 2 destroyer divisions, no searchlights, torpedoes first, guns last. Onami and Makanami die. Ugiri is run down. 0 American losses. Between actions, the culture changes. Captains stop chasing wrecks and victory laps on the radio. The CIC learns to argue the plot. That's clutter. That's land return. And not let a ghost bend a column. The night loses its panic and keeps its risk. Air makes the math worse for Japan. Black cats scribble light on runs. PT boats force zigzags. Submarines close side doors. Daylight belongs more and more to carrier air that hunts destroyers whether or not they're ready to duel. A night won with torpedoes can be unwound at noon by Dauntlesses or Avengers stacked over the slot. Industry adds weight to every sentence. American yards birth new Fletchers, and Sumners faster than losses can teach their names. Radars arrive installed, not promised. Japanese hulls fight older as the year runs on. What began as a duel of doctrines becomes a duel of pipelines, training, fuel, repair. Even American torpedoes crawl out of their own shadow. Faults that embarrass the Mark 1415 get hunted down. Not perfect, but better. Enough to matter when doctrine says torpedoes first. The long lance doesn't stop being long. It stops being enough. A fan still kills a column that holds a proud straight line, but there are fewer proud straight lines left to kill. Columns weave, plots argue. Helmsmen turn toward the track, not away. The clock Japan once owned now belongs to both sides. By late 43, night is contested. Day belongs to air. Japan can still cut. It cannot close. Every half-delivered supply run is a platoon that eats once instead of twice. Every destroyer saved by turning away clean is a destroyer not available next week. Edges erode grain by grain. This is how the sea gives them back. Next, myths and facts. What the long lance truly changed, what legend exaggerates, and why its reign ended not from magic failing, but from context collapsing. Myth. The long lance was unbeatable. Fact. It was unequaled, not unbeatable. Specs, plain, 610mm, 490 kilo warhead, $20,000 allied L48 Keen, or 40 plus kilometer, 3638 Keen, with almost no bubble wake. That gave Japan a night edge. Counters, CIC, SG radar, timed weaves, comb the tracks, torpedoes first from the dark, cut that edge down. The weapon stayed deadly. The context stopped cooperating. Myth. Early U.S. defeats were just bad luck. Fact. They were doctrine collisions. Japan trained to fire at where time will put a column and turn away clean. U.S. forces entered night like bad daylight. Searchlights, steady courses, splash corrections, until the book got rewritten at Savo Island, 9 Aug 42, and Tassafaronga, 30 Nov 42. Myth. Radar should have solved everything. Fact. Early sets helped and lied. Plots needed interpretation, and maneuvers had to match torpedo math. By mid-43, CIC is standard, SG sits on most destroyers in the slot, and orders sound like clocks. Weave on the minute, turn toward the reported track, hold guns dark until fish land. Myth. Japanese crews were reckless with oxygen. Fact. They were ritual careful. Bleed, test, smell, log. Because oxygen could cook your own racks. Losses like Mikuma after Midway showed the risk, but the later erosion came from tired hulls, thin crews, and fuel pressure, not carelessness. Myth. Torpedoes won entire battles by themselves. Fact. Torpedoes often open nights. Gunfire and air often finish them. Empress Augusta Bay, 2 Nov 43. Torpedoes open, radar guns finish. By noon, air owns whatever's left. What the long lance really changed: range and timing. It pushed danger far beyond gunnery range, forcing enemies to respect minutes and angles, not just miles. Doctrine. It rewarded silent geometry, fans across futures, not at holes, making first cut repeatable. Culture. It made navies treat night as its own war, with its own rooms, CIC, habits, no lights, and verbs, weave, comb, turn toward. Counter-evolution. It proved a great weapon can be answered by process, plus sensors, plus discipline, and by logistics that keep crews trained and ships ready. Ledger, plane. Japan fielded the finest surface torpedo of the war and paired it with night-drilled crews. It smashed complacent formations and wrote iron-bottom sound onto maps. The United States bled, learned, built rooms of clocks, and stole the night back, then let air power own the day. The long lance wasn't sorcery. It was engineering with doctrine, deadly when the ocean stayed quiet and the enemy stayed honest. When the picture changed, radar plots, timed weaves, fuel shortages, thinner crews, the same torpedo cut less often and closed fewer stories. That is how an edge fades at sea, in minutes, habits, and miles.